Hey YouTube, I wanted to hop on here quick and just talk about how I'm doing right now, and the truth is I'm struggling so much. I honestly, since I took antibiotics, I feel like a broken record, but it just changed kind of my, I don't know if trajectory is the right word, but just how I'm feeling. Like I've shared in past videos, I had started sharing my success story, and I would go to bed at night and just be like, I feel like I'm healing, and I would just cry because something had shifted and I had just felt so much better for about a month, and I was just like, I'm gonna be okay. Like, this is gonna end for me. You know, I've been in this for so long, struggling for so long, but this is gonna end for me. And then now I should have, one thing that I have sort of as a goal for 2023, as cliche as that sounds, is to just listen to my gut and my intuition. And after that second pill of amoxicillin, I was just out of my mind. Like, I was up half the night just walking around the apartment. I was in the shower at 3 a.m. I could not settle my mind. I could not settle my body. It was really intense. And I should have listened, and I should have just stopped then, and I didn't. I pushed through, and I listened to, it's not my family's fault, but I listened to some family members just say, you know, it's important to finish your medication, and it's important to take the whole course and make sure the infection doesn't come back. But to me, this now is what I'm experiencing is far worse than any infection that I had. So just one thing that I'm going to be doing this year. And honestly, like, if I'm just being totally honest, I'm kind of to the point where I'm just done with allopathic medicine, because when I look back, even prior to this medication injury and everything that went on there, I've had issues with Western medicine for years. I mean, because I've been diabetic for, it'll be 5 years in May, and I've had celiac disease for 10 years, and I've over 10 years now. Actually, this will be the 11th year. And just how many times I've been misdiagnosed, given the wrong treatments. I feel like, you know, I had sinus surgery in 2010, and prior to that I had been on antibiotics like every single month. And it just frustrates me because, I mean, antibiotics do so much harm to your gut, and, you know, the gut-brain connection is real, and I just wish I would have been ever given alternatives or talked to about the root cause, because they told me when I had my sinuses, like when they were really, really bad, and I was having discussions with the doctors about having surgery, they told me, your left maxillary sinus is too narrow. You need to have surgery to widen it, and then you won't essentially get infections anymore. So I literally had that done, and it, I would say, worked, or at least helped for a while. But I'm kind of wondering now, because the year after I had the surgeries, when I started antidepressants, so that was 2011, and I know a lot of psychiatric drugs, I never know the right terminology, but they kind of like suppress histamine, and then when you go off them, you can have like severe histamine issues. And so I'm wondering if that acted like as an antihistamine for me, and then it kind of like threw in another variable as far as what's going on with my sinuses, or, you know, the fact that they were better. Because now that I'm off the drugs and I essentially have too much histamine in my body, my sinus problems are all back. But if the actual root cause was that they were too narrow, that hasn't changed. They widened them, they're still widened. And I actually saw an ear, nose, throat doctor a year and a half ago, and he had said sometimes more surgeries are required, and that makes no sense to me. If the problem was it was too narrow and it's wide now, there should be no, it shouldn't change unless somehow that can like close back in. But I've never heard that before. And I've read about people having like 4 surgeries for sinuses and still being as sick as ever. And it just frustrates me. The whole system just frustrates me, how everything is segregated. Like, psychiatry is, you know, this doctor, and if you have lung problems, you see this doctor, and if you have autoimmune problems, you see a rheumatologist, and if you have, you know, ear, nose, and throat problems, you see an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and if you have diabetes, you see an endocrinologist. But it's like there's no communication between all these, and they treat the body as a segregated system, and it's not. It's integrated, it's holistic, it's whole. Everything works together with everything else. Even the gut-brain thing, like, it's like the gut and the brain, they're connected, but yet you have a gastroenterologist for the gut and you have a psychiatrist or a neurologist for the brain. It doesn't make any sense to me anymore. And it's hard because, like, I really, really want to walk away from the system. But the part that's hard for me is that I have chronic diseases, and so that it's harder for me to just walk away completely, because I need routine blood work. I need to stay on top of, are my kidneys functioning properly? How are my eyes? How, are my how is my cholesterol? How is my blood pressure? Like all those kind of things, and diabetes can have really serious consequences if you don't stay ahead of the game. So I'm just kind of like struggling mentally with this, but I just so desperately want to walk away, because same thing with psychiatry. I mean, psychiatry, in my opinion, not even my opinion, it's not scientific. I mean, the whole DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders that they use to like diagnose and prescribe, is not based on anything scientific. Like that's the thing that bothers me, it's just like a panel of psychiatrists that basically come together and agree on, okay, this is what qualifies as bipolar disorder, this is what schizophrenia is, but there's no measurement anywhere, there's no measuring of anything. And then the whole like chemical imbalance theory that went on for so long, and they're kind of starting to say that that's not the case, thankfully. That was never based on anything either. Like, I mean, it's not like I went to the doctor and said, hey, I'm feeling depressed, and he drew cerebral spinal fluid or measured my brain somehow and said, hey, yeah, your serotonin is low. And I think about diabetes, where when I got diagnosed, my blood sugar was 64 millimoles per liter, which is like 1,100 and some milligrams per deciliter if you live in the US, like 10 times normal. And then, okay, boom, that means, I have diabetes, and then you take a prescribed number of units of insulin, and it brings your number down to a specific range, and then you have to keep it within that range. Like that to me is scientific and measurable. Psychiatry, it's literally like you get a diagnosis based on basically opinions and what people have agreed on, these psychiatrists. Then you get prescribed a medication that you don't even know if you can metabolize properly, and they have no idea. You basically, every patient starts on a dose. Typically it's like a small dose, but not always, and then you work your way up over a course of weeks, and then you just see how you feel. It's dangerous, and the fact that there's such severe potential side effects with psychiatric drugs, starting them, changing the dose, coming off, more so than any other drug I've ever really heard of. Of course, I'm not a doctor, but I've been in the system for years, and I've never seen anything like it before. And just the fact that it's just this big guessing game is terrifying. And I'm not really sure how it's allowed, to be honest. I really don't. And don't get me wrong, like I appear on camera like I'm poised and calm, but inside, like everything's just going nuts. I mean, my head is pounding, my nerves are shocking, and like right now, at this very moment, it's not super intense. And I've shared this before, when it's super intense, I don't sit down like at all. I can't really function. I just stare at the clock, between taking care of my baby constantly, and just be like, is this day over? Is this day over? Is this day over? Because the symptoms are so intense. And it's just like, I need, like, and I'll just be bawling my eyes out, and I'm like, I need relief, but nothing I've tried. Like, I've tried everything over the years. I've tried every kind of supplement. I'm sure I've spent upwards of like $500 to $1,000 on supplements and treatments. Sorry, I have a really psychotic washing machine. Sorry about the noise if that's really loud. Like supplements and alternative therapies, and going back into the system, reinstating, trying, they say, oh, this drug was the wrong drug for your symptoms, so let's try this one. And then all it did was just bring on more and more and more and more symptoms. Every drug just brought on new symptoms for me. And then I was just this huge, disastrous mess by like February of 2021, where my entire body was completely out of control. Like, just, I'll never forget sitting on the bench on our balcony here, and like my body pretty much throwing itself off of the bench. Like my arms and legs were just violently moving and throwing my body, like it was horrible. And that's like when it got its worst, and then coming off, and it's just been such a battle for so long. And I just hate that I mean, my own comparisons in my head are to my previous experiences in the last 4 years. So I'll say, oh, I'm not doing too bad, but that's based on how bad it has been. But if you compare it to a normal person or who I was before the drugs, it's still very, very dysfunctional. The way my mind works, the way my body feels, it's very, very abnormal. Except for, I would say, before I started the antibiotics. Then I was approaching more, okay, this is like normal, not normal for withdrawal. You know, there's like a big difference there. So this is more just like a rant video, and for me, it always builds up. Like, a lot of people I know feel worse in the morning, but for me, it's usually the opposite. I'll get like a spike of anxiety right when I wake up. Then I get my day started, and I kind of, I have so much to do with my baby and so much to do around the house, and then things kind of like, I don't know if I'm just distracted or what, but then usually now around 11 a.m. until late afternoon, it just builds and builds and builds. And it can get to scary levels. Like, just 2 days ago, it was bad. I mean, it was like akathisia, where I just felt like screaming. I was just, everything in my body, like every cell in my body was screaming and burning and just like moving around, and I was just I couldn't even sit. Like, it was so hard to just sit in the vehicle, and I was trying to drive, but I was just like, oh my goodness, I can't stand the feeling in my body. Like, it was just the most frantic, horrible, and I'm trying to stay composed for my daughter, and I'm just like screaming on the inside. I was just like, oh my goodness, like I need help. And then just like a light switch, it was just the craziest thing. It was right around 3 p.m. Boom, it just left. Everything left. My bone crushing pain, those horrible feelings in my body, the burning from head to toe, just the feeling of every cell just being shredded with a grater was just gone. And then for like 6 hours, from like 3 to 9, I just lost track of time. I just lived. And that's when I know it's like a window, because when you're feeling well, you lose track of time. Obviously not always. Like, if you're doing something mundane or boring or that you hate, the time goes slow. But I mean, in general, you just live. You're not constantly consumed by symptoms and constantly consumed by how you feel and what you're thinking, and hyper aware of everything and scared of the future. Like, you're just living, you're just being, and that's how I felt. And then I went to bed that night, and then yesterday and today have been horrible. So I'm just really, really cautious moving forward about, in my personal circumstance, just being cautious, because when I look back, even prior to the medications and just with my diseases and stuff, like the amount of times I've been mistreated, misdiagnosed dangerously is scary. And I know that like the system is flawed and it's corrupt in a lot of ways, and doctors are overworked and nurses are overworked, and the system itself is just based on symptom suppression, not root cause, not healing, not reversing disease. It's a problem. And so I just want to take a step back and just figure out, okay, can I live a good, healthy life despite my diseases and my issues pulling away from the system? That's kind of where I'm at now. So I just wanted to share that. Let me know how you're all doing, and I hope I can report back with a window really soon. I want to film myself in a full window so you can see, like, yeah, I seem calm now, but in a window, it's just like, I love life. And I was saying to my friend the other day, in my window, I was talking to him, and I was like, I have the deepest appreciation for the smallest things in a window. It's like just being able to sit and hold like a warm cup of decaf coffee, or like just to sit and read a book, or to sit and just watch a TV show, or to just like really be like enthralled and really present in the moment with my baby and just playing. It's just the most beautiful thing. And so I feel like once you come out of this, or once people come out of this, they say life is just so beautiful. And I see that. I can see that in a window. But right now I'm just tense and burning and everything hurts, and it's so hard.